When the Albanese government was re-elected in May, an incoming government brief was prepared for Chris Bowen, which told him electricity prices would rise for consumers and emissions reductions would have to accelerate rapidly if the government wanted to reach its key 2030 climate target. Parts of that secret report has now been published. However, much of it has been redacted. Joining us live this morning from Canberra, the National Senator Matt Canavan. Matt, good to see you this morning. So did this post-election briefing tell us anything we didn't already know?
Well, it does mean that there are a lot of questions here for Chris Bowen now. I mean, what has he been keeping secret from the Australian people? And Anthony Albanese, as Chris Bowen advised the Prime Minister, that there are significant retail electricity price increases to come. That's what his department advised him months ago. He's been keeping that secret from the Australian people. I haven't heard Chris Bowen be upfront with us all that this is about to happen. And if you are given advice that Australians are set to suffer even more with even more electricity price increases, why hasn't the government reflected on its plans and tried to come up with another plan to provide relief? Later this year, the government's Band-Aid relief to provide electricity rebates will end, and Australians will face higher electricity bills because of that. And then on top of that, there are these further retail price increases to come. This government's net zero agenda is completely failing. It's failing on its own terms because they promised us that net zero would lower power prices. Instead, it's done the opposite. Isn't it time we reflect now on whether this is the smart way to reduce emissions, to support our economy, to keep manufacturing in Australia, and to help Australian families who are struggling with the higher price of everything in this country? I mean, now Chris Bowen's got to get up front with the Australian people. Stop treating us like mushrooms and provide us the real advice about the state of our energy market.
Those rebates that you spoke of, should they be extended?
Look, well, we can't keep doing that forever. They come at a cost of billions of dollars every year. The government's budget is already in billions of dollars of debt, and it's getting worse and worse over the next few years. So, look, I would much prefer a model where we get the price down because providing rebates doesn't get the cost down. The cost then is just shifted from electricity consumers to taxpayers if we go down the rebate path. What we have to do to keep that manufacturing industry alive as well is to get the price of electricity down. And the clearest way to do that is to use the resources we have, use the power stations we have to supply more power. We currently have an electricity market where, because of the artificial way it's run, our coal-fired power plants are lucky to run 50, 60% of the time. They could run 80 to 90% of the time. Why don't we unleash that and produce and put more supply into the market?
It sounds like we're going to have
just providing subsidies, I'd get more supply.
It sounds like you're perhaps open then to an extension of the rebates, though, while they work out another plan. But isn't that going to fly in the face of, Susan Lee's plan to cut back on spending?
Well, no, I haven't said that. I don't really want to do the rebates, I must say. Look, in saying that, Peter, we're not in government right now, so I can't, come December this year, I don't think there's much prospect that I or anyone in the Liberal National Party will be a minister. So we can't make that decision. That'll be up to the government. They'll have to suffer the consequences one way or another of doing it. They've put us in this mess. What we have to do is develop a plan ahead of the next election for what we would do in 2028. Okay. And as I say, I think what we should do is increase the supply of power.
All right, I just wanted to squeeze in a couple of questions on the environmental laws, Matt. So the minister will be able to ignore green tape laws in rare circumstances to push through projects deemed to be in the national interest. That's the latest addition to all of this. Would that be enough to gain coalition support for the reforms?
Well, I think this is smoke and mirrors, Peter. There is already a national interest exemption in the EPBC Act in our environmental laws. I've got it right here. It's section 158. Peter, it says that under 158.3, the minister may, by written notice, exempt. It goes on to say the minister may do so if he or she is satisfied that is in the national interest. So the national interest exemption is already there. So the question has to go is, what is Murray Watt up to here? Why is he saying that he's going to introduce something which is already in the Act? Well, there's nothing extra there. This, to me, seems like an attempt simply to hoodwink people into supporting what is a Trojan horse for the government to have a lot more power, a lot more bureaucrats, to be running the ruler over a lot more investments in this country and ultimately slowing things down. If the minister was serious about removing roadblocks and getting projects approved, he could use that national interest exemption today. In fact, the former minister, Tanya Plibersek, used it a couple of years ago. She used it to exempt her own department or not her department, I should say, the Department of Industry, another department of government, from these laws. But so if it's good enough to use them to exempt their own officials, why isn't it good enough to use them to exempt and help Australian businesses?
And just a further note on that, I mean, should this reopen the door for the McPhillamys gold mine near Blaney?
Well, exactly. Why can't they could use these laws now? They could do that and this is a ridiculous case. I'm glad you raised that. This blue-banded bee, which is actually a story about a mythical bee. How can a story about a mythical creature stop the creation of 1,000 jobs, stop the creation of a literal gold mine while gold prices are through the roof? And it could make gold, it could make money for our country.
Yeah.
The government could have used these laws that it has right now to get that going. The fact that they haven't shows they are not serious about creating jobs and opportunities.
Do you hope?
And this
so this
bill
was under. So this was under Tanya Plibersek.
Is not an attempt to do that either.
Would you hope that Murray Watt goes back to this?
But Murray Watt could do that now. Let's do it now. It's a great idea, Peter. Let's get Murray. Use it. If you're so keen on a national interest exemption, use it today. Create these jobs.
All right, Matt Canavan, good to see you. Chat to you again next week.